helpful and supportive of me and the club and everything that we did. He helped at every spring field cleanup day. He either raked, seeded, fertilized, paint, or helped clean out the shed, which is probably the worst job of all. But most importantly, always with a smile. He always had a big smile on his face and very happy to be involved and help. When it became difficult for him to do the work, he approached me and said, "Hey Bill, I'm not up to doing the work anymore. How about I bring donuts?" And of course, he said yes. That was Larry. Always involved, always with a smile, always willing to help us out. I'm very grateful for all his efforts and the support that he gave the club over the years and the support that he gave me personally. Godspeed, Larry, and may you always have fair skies and calm winds. With that.
Well, that was so good, I have nothing to say.
Okay.
Well, first of all, again, welcome. This is Kim. I've only known Kim a few years now. Only met a few times, and Mike had just recently met you. But why don't you say hello to Kim?
Hi,
Hey,
Kim. Welcome.
and make her feel like she's one of us.
Excuse me if I don't keep it together.
Yeah. Hey, you gotta watch me, baby. Anyway, I don't know what to say, but I can tell you. Well, first of all, I want you to all know, if you don't know, that Larry was 89 years old, for Pete's sake. My goodness, and he always seemed so much younger, and not only in physical being, but in his energy. So it was very, very difficult when he started to slow down near the end. I've known Larry for a long time. We've done a lot of things together with him, and at the lake house, flying on Saturday mornings, and I'm sorry, Tuesday mornings, yeah. I got to think back about 10, 12 years or so when Larry and I first met. We didn't like each other at all. We didn't get along. He was stubborn. You know, he was really.
You're not very light. You're not.
Well, I was going to say that maybe he started to mature. But maybe it was me.
Set yourself up for that one.
Yeah. Anyway, we did get to be good friends. We got to understand each other, and my goodness, we did have some fun times. I don't want to say a whole lot more. There's one thing that I spoke to Larry probably a few days before he passed, and it seemed like he was just about ready to come home. He recognized that he might not be able to live alone. And he says, "Bob, would you mind getting to the house and cleaning out my workshop? Because I think we're going to be needing it as an extra bedroom. You have to have somebody." One thing I remember him saying, and not in these exact words, but in ending, I want to take an excerpt from a card that Kim had printed up. And if it's anything that I would remember Larry saying in his last moments, if I could hear him say this, he'd say, "I'd like the memory of me to be a happy one." Okay, that's the kind of guy he was. That's all I have to say. Bill, what's next? Oh, you know what? There's one thing that I want to do. As you know, I'm going to be doing a flyby, memorial flyby for your dad, and I'm going to be using an airplane that he built and gave me some years ago. We'll be spreading some flowers and a little bit of Larry, okay? So he'll always be part of this field. We have a fellow here that went to some extremes to get a picture. Someone had a picture of Larry in that airplane, okay? And I'd like to call on Nino now to give us all a view of that picture.
I'm filming
provided to you. Okay.
This was like your dad. I said to your dad, you know, when I get your age, I want to be just like you, because I marveled at his full set of hair.
Yeah.
Didn't he? Yeah,
It was
what
amazing.
hair
It was,
he
I
did.
go, how'd you do that? There was not one tiny bald spot anywhere.
At 89.
I mean,
Well, I don't think Dad looked 89 until
No.
the day he passed away. And he was pretty tired.
he'd come up here with his car and he would say to me, "Boy, you're really getting your money's worth out of this club, aren't you?" Because I lived here, basically. And, you know, he's always, he talked about you know, his past as an electrician and a lot of military talk. And I was just amazed at his mobility. Drove here. I don't know, I see people 72 years old in a nursing home that were like, oh my God, this guy's a superstar.
Yeah, right.
Compared to, and he still flew an airplane. So, anyway, I didn't make a big deal out of this picture. I wanted you to, it's just something that we got. You know, maybe you could take care of it. That's him in that aircraft. You know, I wanted you to have it just as a remembrance. He was a great guy. And like I said, I want to be just like him.
I'd like to say,
With his positive attitude, and, you know, let's get to it.
well, I'd like to say that your dad was my mentor for so many years. And I lived right around the corner from him. Whenever he had a computer problem, whenever I had a airplane problem, we would get together and spend hours fixing one or the other. And that happened quite a bit. But he was my mentor for probably 15 or 20 years.
I gotta get a picture of that.
It was great. He helped me a great deal.
I didn't even get a picture of that. There you go. Perfect.
Hey, Bob?
I talked to him on the phone.
Well, I've talked to Kim. Larry and I hit it off right away. He was a Navy veteran. I was a Navy veteran.
Because you
Love to
weren't
go.
stubborn.
Well, that's coming. We would go fishing at his house a couple times a week. Load the boat up with beer. No food, just beer.
They had to have a beer.
But Larry always had to be the driver. He ran. You could only use electric motors there, of course. He would sit in the back with his fly rod, trolling, and the fishing was really good there at that time. Now there's no fishing there at all. When he
A lot
first,
of bluegills.
we didn't fly airplanes at that time. We were mostly fishing buddies. We were both electricians. You know, we have a lot in common. Okay. Somebody went and bought a Beaver, a float plane. It might have been Paul or Bob. And that got Larry and I started on flying off the water at his house. And that went on for quite a while until he started losing his balance, of course. And then it got to the point where he couldn't get in the fishing boat. It was too rocky. And then it got to the point where he was afraid to walk on the dock. So it kind of took the fun out of it. Because at Tuesdays, we used to all get together, Larry included, and we'd go for pizza at Carmenucci's. But even towards the end, he wouldn't go to pizza with us.
Well,
Whether he didn't
you know,
feel
he
good
would
or...
say to me, well, I don't like their pizza. And I'm like, well, so what? Get something to,
Yeah, they
get
have
something to drink and just, you know, enjoy being with your friends. But, you know, that was hard for Dad.
But we had good times. We used to go to the biplane bash up in Hartford area every year, you know, and we would go to the Neat Fair up in Upper New York State, and he'd drive one year, I'd drive. So we'd talk the whole way.
drive?
Yeah,
Yeah, really.
Wow.
It
You really did have some clout, didn't you?
You know what he really liked was Chinese food.
Yes, he did.
So, you know what?
Yes, he did.
He wanted us to go to Chinese food with him. But the first time that we asked, well, actually, a dozen times that we asked if we could come to pizza, he says, I don't want to go today. But one day he called and he says, you want to go to pizza? And I says, yeah, I'll meet you up there. No, I said, I'll come over and we can drive together. And he says, no. He says, we got to go in separate cars. And I said, why? He says, you won't want to stay there and eat as long as I do. You know, it's a Chinese buffet.
Oh, he asked me to go.
And he would go
up
there
in the
and he said
Milford, the
2
Chinese
hours
buffet.
he would spend up there eating.
I know, we bought him gift certificates, but, you know, all of you guys need to know that. I'm sorry, this is hard. That's why I
okay, it's
almost didn't want
okay.
to come.
It's okay.
You folks filled such a huge void in my dad's life. You know, he's a tough guy. He would never admit his failings or what he saw as failings. They weren't failings, you know, it was life. And he still was who he was. But when Mom died, you know, it was kind of like, they were always like this. That was their relationship. But they both loved each other. And when he lost Mom, that was a big thing for him. And you guys filled a void, such an important void. You gave him a reason to live. And my dad was always interested in models and stuff like all of that stuff. He always worked with my brother and us when we were little on models. Oh my God, the models my father did with my brother. But if he didn't have that, I don't know what he would have done. So it was especially hard for him when he felt he couldn't do everything that he used to do with the club. And I don't know, I think he just felt better distancing himself than showing everybody he couldn't really do. I mean, he didn't understand my reasoning that, Dad, you know, they don't care. You know, you're still a part of the club. But he couldn't. But I know that he would love this. He didn't want a service when he was buried or anything like that. But, you know, I almost didn't agree to this when Bob asked me about it. But then I thought about it, and I thought, you know, he would like that. So I thank you all so much.
It's our pleasure indeed.
Yes.
All right, Larry.
No.
Just a couple of things. He and I had the same plane. We had a PT-17, and every time I brought it here to the field and get it set up, he would come over and he would always say helpful things to me like, "What the hell are you doing that for?" Or, and get it ready to fly, and he would go, "Are you crazy?" You know, very helpful and wisdom. You know, he had a lot of wisdom, and of course, his plane was in one piece, and my plane I used to take home in a bag. You know, so that's what I remember about Larry. But we did have the same plane, and every time he came here, he would come over and look at it, and see how much glue was in it. You know, that kind of
And
stuff.
Joe was smart enough never to argue with him. Because
No.
You just didn't do with Larry. You didn't argue with him.
I did.
Yeah, well,
It didn't go over well, but I did.
Everybody was kiddo to him.
yeah, kiddo, yeah.
Kiddo,
Yeah,
yeah.
he knew our names very well, but everybody, hey, kiddo,
Hey,
how you
kiddo.
doing? Anyone else
You
want to
call
pipe
him
up
and
with
talk
a
to him.
word
How
or
you
something?
doing, Dad? Oh, same old, same old.
Kiddo.
Well, we're
I
gonna
think
move
Dad
on
had his
to
own
a
language.
we're gonna move on to a memorial flyby. The weather's not all that cooperative, so we're hoping for the best.
Oh, yeah, the
Okay, the wind is kind of hairy, so we'll have a quick flyby. I have loaded in the bottom of Larry's plane some flowers that I broke up into petals, as well as a little bit of Larry. So we will spread it over the field and be a part of us forever. Okay. With that, I welcome anyone who would care to watch to join us at the flight line. And
Where's that?
All right.
Good job, Bob.
Oh, is he? Oh, I see.